Hi everyone, myself Dr. P. Soumya, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering College. In this session, I'm going to discuss about introduction to natural resources. Here, I'm going to cover the topics resources on Earth, importance of natural resources, components of biosphere, present status of natural resources in India. So, natural resources here, most life forms need an ambient temperature, water, and food. So, the resources available on the earth and the energy from the sun are necessary to meet the basic requirements of all the life forms on the earth. So, we need resources like on sun, we need sun, air, and water. So, these are basic needs for the living organisms which are present in on the earth. So these are the resources. So what is meant by natural resource? It is the stock of the nature, such as water, air, soil, minerals, and living organisms that are useful to mankind in many ways. So natural resource, it is the stock of the nature, such as air, water, soil, minerals, and all living organisms, so that are useful to mankind in many ways. Here, the earth provides. So, what is the importance of natural resources? So, the earth provides almost everything we need to survive through its atmosphere, oceans, and soil. We use Earth's natural resources to help us survive. So, the natural resources is any natural material that is used by humans or living things. So, natural resource is it is any natural material that is used by humans and living things. So, examples of natural sources, these will include water, petroleum, minerals, forests, and animals, and all living organisms. So, here most of natural resources are made into products. So, very few natural resources are used in their natural state. So most of the natural resources, they are made into other products, and some very few natural resources, so these are used in their natural state. So what is biosphere? So here the life supporting zone of the earth where the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere interact and make life possible is known as biosphere. So the life supporting zone of the earth where the atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, so they are interact with each other and the make life possible is known as biosphere. Here, what is lithosphere, what is hydrosphere, and what is atmosphere? Here, the outer crust of the earth is lithosphere. The outer crust of earth is lithosphere. The water on the earth is hydrosphere, and the layer of the air around the earth is atmosphere. The layer of the air around the earth is atmosphere. The water on the earth is hydrosphere. The outer crust of the earth is lithosphere. So here the the life supporting zone of the earth where atmosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, so interact with each other. So and these are make life possible is that known as that sphere is known as biosphere. So this is a combination of atmosphere, lithosphere, and hydrosphere. So this is biosphere. So combination of atmosphere, lithosphere, and hydrosphere, it is called as biosphere. So what are the components of biosphere? So here first component is biotic component and second one is abiotic component. So two components are there, biotic and abiotic. So biotic and abiotic. So what is biotic component? Here there are obtained from the living and organic material. So these biotic components, So these are obtained from living and as well as organic material. So these will formed by living and organic material. So these include forest product, wildlife. So here forests, wildlife, crops and other living organisms. So these biotic components includes forests, wildlife, crops, other living organisms. So most of the resources are renewable as they can regenerate themselves. So renewable means they can regenerate themselves. That sources are called as renewable resources. So most of these biotic resources are renewable, but some fossil fuels are considered as biotic because they are formed from decayed organic matter. So the fossil fuels also considered as biotic component because they are formed from the decayed organic matter. So by decaying of organic matter, we will get fossil fuels. So this is also come under biotic component. So these fossil fuels are non-renewable. Most of the natural resources are biotic components are renewable, but fossil fuels are not non-renewable because they cannot regenerate themselves. So examples of biotic components: plants, animals, microorganisms, etc. So this is about biotic component of biosphere. So this is obtained from living and organic material. So what is abiotic component? So these resources come from non-living and non-organic material. So this is from non-living and non-organic material. Non-living and non-organic material. So in case of biotic material, so that sources are obtained from living and organic material. Abiotic components, these sources are comes from non-living and non-organic material. Some of the resources like water and air are renewable. So here, so, some of biotic components examples are water, air, and minerals. So these are come under biotic components. So some resources like water and air are renewable, so they can regenerate themselves. So here, other resources like minerals are non-renewable and exhaustible as they cannot be regenerated. So other sources like minerals, these are non-renewable. So and they can exhaustible as they cannot be regenerated again. So these the minerals are come under non-renewable resources. So minerals have many categories like metallic, non-metallic and minor minerals. So minerals also having many categories like metallic minerals, non-metallic minerals and minor minerals. So examples of abiotic mineral sources are resources are here air, water, soil, minerals, non-living things. So these are comes from non-living and non-organic material. Non-living and non-organic material. So here biotic, so this is abiotic. So the biotic includes plants, animals, living organisms like here fungus, bacteria and protozoa and all microorganisms. Here non-living things, here water, soil, air, light, minerals, they are come under abiotic resources, abiotic components of the biosphere. See, stages of development here, potential resources. So the resources that are known to exist. So potential resources means resources that are known to exist but have not been utilized yet. So they have not been utilized yet. They are potential resources. So they are known to exist but they have not been utilized yet. So these may be used in the future. So, for example, petroleum, it is a sedimentary rocks that until extracted and it is put into use, so it can remains as a potential resource. So here we are taking example of petroleum in sedimentary rocks, and it is here until extracted and until usage, so it remains as a potential resource. So it is known to exist but have not been utilized. So that source is called as potential resource. So actual resources means so resources that have been surveyed, quantified and qualified and also currently used in the development. So actual resources are that have been surveyed, quantified, qualified, and also currently used in development. So these are actual resources. So these are typically dependent on technology and level of their feasibility. For example, wood processing. Wood processing. So these are typically dependent on technology and level of their feasibility. So here reserves the part of an actual resource that can be developed profitably in future. So reserves, so the part of this is a part of actual resources. So this can be developed profitably in future. So here stocks means resources that have been surveyed but cannot be used due to lack of technology. So example, vehicles hydrogen vehicles. So stocks means resources. These are resources that have been surveyed but cannot be used due to lack of technology. So example of these stocks here, hydrogen vehicle. So these are stages of development. Here ownership, individual resources, we have several resources, individual resources, national resources and international resources. So what are individual resources? Resources owned privately by individuals. So these include flats, houses, plantations, pastures, ponds, etc. So the resources owned by privately, resources owned privately by individuals. So these are called as individual resources. So this includes flats, houses, ponds, and plantations, etc. So here national resources. National resources means resources that belong to the nation. So the nation has legal powers to acquire them for public welfare. So these also include minerals, forests, wildlife within the political boundaries and exclusive economic zone. So these national resources means resources that belong to the nation. So these national resources are belong to one nation. So the nation has legal powers to acquire them for public welfare. We can use these resources for public welfare. So these includes minerals, forests, wildlife within the political boundaries and exclusive economic zone. So here, so these are the resources which are related to a particular nation, and these land resources within the political boundaries and oceanic resource up to 12 nautical miles. 12 nautical miles. So examples, minerals, forests, oceanic resources, etc. So these are within the political boundaries. So these national resources are these are belong to the one nation, and these are includes of minerals, forest, wildlife, but within the political boundaries. These are national resources. So what are international resources means? These resources are regulated by international organizations. So example, international waters. So these resources are regulated by international organizations. Example, international water like oceans. So these are international resources are managed by international institutions, and they belong to various nations of the world. So they belong to various nations of the world. Example, so oceanic resources, petroleum, etc. Oceanic resources, petroleum, etc. These are come under international resources. So, why is it important to conserve our natural resources? So, why it is important to conserve our natural resources? So, we need to be careful on how we use our natural resources and use them only when necessary. Use them only when necessary. So, the conservation is the preservation and careful management of the environment and natural resources. So conservation is the preservation and careful management of the environment and of natural resources. So this is reduce, and we have to reduce, reuse and recycle the natural resources. So one way is to limit their uses. So example, turn off the faucet, replant plants. Recycling is the process by which used or discarded materials are treated for use. So we have to reduce the usage, and we have to reuse and recycle. So here one way is to limit their uses. So example, turn off the faucets and replant the plants. So recycling is also very important process. So recycling process means, so here we will reuse and recycle the materials which are discarded. The materials which are discarded. So we have to reuse and recycle. So we can conserve the natural resources. So non-renewable resources are needed to be conserved as they take a very long time to replenish. So renewable resources need some time to replenish, but non-renewable resources are needed more. They can be conserved as they take very long time. So non-renewable resources, they are needed to be conserved, but they can take the very long time to replenish. So renewable resources, they need some time to replenish. So the overuse of natural resources hampers the replenishment of these resources. So the following things should be practiced if we still want to enjoy the natural resources in the coming years. So first one is minimize cutting down the trees. Minimize cutting down the trees, using the non-renewable natural resources properly, and finding methods to use renewable natural resources more. Finding methods to use renewable natural resources more. So by using methods, so we can enjoy the natural resources in the coming years. So status of natural resources in India. Here India, it is gifted with various types of natural resources such as fertile soil, forest, minerals and water. So India is gifted various types of natural resources. They will include fertile soil, fertile soil, forests, forests, minerals and water, minerals and water, minerals and water. So these are very important natural resources in India. So these resources unevenly distributed. The Indian continent covers the Indian continent covers multitude of biotic and abiotic resource. Biotic and abiotic resource. So, as India has rapid population growth, as India has a rapid population growth, therefore there is a overconsumption of resources such as uncontrolled logging or overfishing, and many valuable natural resources are rapidly being exhausted. So because we have the India has a rapid growth of population. So population growth is more here, rapidly it is increasing. The population is rapidly increasing. So therefore there is a overconsumption of resources such as uncontrolled logging and overfishing, and many valuable natural resources are rapidly, so they can be exhausted. So how extraction of natural resources. So what is extraction of natural resources? Resource extraction involves any activity that withdraws resources from nature. So resource extraction involves any activity that withdraws resources from nature. So here this can range in scale from the traditional use of pre-industrial societies to global industry. So extractive industries are, along with agriculture, the basis of primary sector of the economy. Extraction produces raw material which is then processed to add value. Examples of these extractive industries are hunting, trapping, mining, oil and gas drilling, and forestry. So the extractive industries, examples of these extractive industries are hunting, trapping, mining, oil, gas, drilling, and forestry. So here resources extraction. So this involves an activity that withdraws resources from the nature. And so the extractive industries represent a large growing activity in many less developed countries, but the wealth generated does not always lead to sustainable and inclusive growth. So the extractive industries represent a large growing activity in many less developed countries, but the wealth generated that does not always lead to sustainable and inclusive growth. So depletion of natural resource depletion is the consumption of resource faster than it can be replenished. So what is depletion? Resource depletion. Resource depletion means is the consumption of resources faster than it can be replenished. So natural resources are commonly divided between renewable resources and non-renewable resources. So natural resources, these are commonly divided into two types, renewable and non-renewable resources. So these minerals resource here, two types of two types of natural resources are there, renewable and non-renewable resources. Here use of their use of either of these forms of resources beyond their rate of replacement is considered to be resource depletion. The use of either of these as renewable or non-renewable forms of resources beyond their rate of replacement, it is considered to be reduced depletion. So it is considered to be depletion. Resource depletion. So here the value of resource is a direct result of its availability in nature, and the cost of extracting the resource, the more resource is depleted. So the more the value of the resource increases. The value of resource is directly result of its availability in nature, and the cost of extracting the resource, the more a resource is depleted, the more the value of resource increases. So this is about depletion of natural resources. Here there are several types of resource depletion, that most known being aquifer depletion, deforestation, mining for fossil fuels and minerals, pollution or contamination of resources, slash and burn agriculture practices, soil erosion and overconsumption, excessive or unnecessary use of resources. So these are come under several types of resource depletion. So aquifer depletion, deforestation, mining for fossil fuels and minerals, pollution and contamination of resources, slash and burn agriculture practices, soil erosion, overconsumption, or excessive or unnecessary use of resources. So, the depletion of natural resources are caused by direct drivers of change, such as mining, petroleum extraction, fishing, and forestry, as well as indirect drivers of change. Indirect drivers of change, such as demography, economy, society, politics, and technology. So the depletion of natural resources, it is caused by direct drivers of change, such as mining, petroleum extraction, fishing, and forestry, as well as indirect drivers of change such as demography, economic, society, politics, and technology. How to manage natural resources? So natural resource management is very, very important. So the natural resource management, it is a discipline in the management of natural resources such as land, water, soil, plants, animals, with a particular focus on how management affects quality of life for present and future generations. So the disciplines of fisheries, forestry, and wildlife are examples of large subdisciplines of natural resource management. So disciplines of fisheries, forestry, and wildlife. So these are examples of large subdisciplines of natural resource management. So habitat conservation is a type of land management that seeks to conserve, protect and restore habitat areas for wild plants, animals, especially conservation related species, and prevent their extinction, fragmentation, or reduction in range. So this is habitat conservation. It is a type of land management. So that seeks to conserve, protect, and restore habitat areas for wild plants and animals, especially conservation of relevant species, and prevent their extinction, fragmentation, or reduction in range. So management of natural resources involves identifying who has the right to use the sources. Management of natural resources, it involves identifying who has the right to use the resources and who does not, for defining the boundaries of the resources. So management of natural resources, it involves identifying who has the right to the use the resources and who does not, for defining the boundaries of the resource. So, and the resources may be managed by the users according to the rules of governing when and how the resource is used, depending on the location condition, local condition, or other resources may be managed by governmental organizations and other central authority. The resources may be managed by the users according to the rules governing when and how the resource is used, depending on the local condition of the resources, that can be managed by government organization or other central authority. So thank you so much.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.